This is Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer, and I'm inviting everyone to join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on the Kickin Lawyer fan page on Facebook for Law Talk Live, where we discuss business, politics, current events, and the law. If you miss the live version, you can watch the playback on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast platform. All right, Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer, and we're live again for another Law Talk. I appreciate everybody taking the time out of the day to join us. We're going to have a good conversation today with a longtime friend, and he's got some exciting information I want to talk with him about. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to us on all social media platforms. We're also on all podcast platforms, Google Podcast, Spotify, etc. We're also on TikTok. Josh likes to do lots of dances, lots of nude dances on there. So you can join us for that. Yeah.
I don't recall any of this, but all right.
And then don't forget, August 20th and 21st in Covington at the Civic Centers, the Covington Comic-Con returns. We are seeking sponsors and vendors as we speak. Tickets will be available soon, so go to covingtoncomiccon.com for information on that. And, of course, Michelle Allen is our longtime realtor sponsor. She's your go-to for cry-like realtors if you're trying to buy, sell, rent, anything real estate related. She'll be glad to help you out. And Mason's High Octane Martial Arts has been open since '93, churning out black belts and kicking lawyers alike. If you want information on that, just visit masonsmartialarts.com. And, of course, the Cellar is located off the square in Covington. It's a 1920s themed prohibition bar and restaurant. We'd love for you to come give it a try. It's open every day at 4 p.m. and Saturdays for brunch. And Masonite Digital Marketing. If you want assistance with your digital online presence, Josh will be glad to help you out. Just visit him at masonitemarketing.com. And joining me today is Mr. Pepper Petersen. How you doing, Pepper?
Good. How are you, Jerry?
Doing better now, right?
Yeah, lots. Feel great.
So for those that don't know Pepper, Pepper's from here. We went to school together, graduated high school, and Pepper runs off to Montana and all out that direction. And he has a beautiful wife, Jamie, and some kids, and just been living his life. And then he's back here because recently he, and I'll let him tell his whole story, but he was the recipient of an organ donor, and which we want to talk about because I think, especially now knowing someone that's got life from it, maybe we all need to reconsider checking that box to be an organ donor.
Sure, yeah.
So what you been up to? What'd you do over off in Montana, and then what are you doing back here and all that?
Oh, we moved out 2002-ish, and work politics out there, and that's kind of my profession, fundraising and politics, and so we did that for many years, and worked for different organizations like the National Rifle Association and National Mining Association and various interests like that, and some corporate public relations over the years. And Jamie works for the state these days, and we live in Helena, which is the capital city there in Montana. And in recent years, I legalized adult use marijuana in Montana, led the campaign to do that, and then started a trade association to represent the legal marijuana businesses in Montana. And so we've been hard at work at that since sometime 2018. And then, it takes a while to build a campaign in order to get some funding and support from the national organizations that you have to go to have a legitimate campaign for legalization. In Montana, we had medical marijuana in 2004. And so, we had a pretty long history with legal cannabis. But I'd gone back and forth with legislation, and there was a lot of changes. But 2020 rolled around, and we had a campaign ready, and we won a pretty substantial margin in Montana. In 2020, we got more votes than any other candidate besides Donald Trump. And so
tell me a little more about that on the cannabis end, I guess, because the question, and obviously Tennessee is not legal, not yet anyway.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people that wonder how it benefits the state, how it hurts the state. It's a gateway, all these different arguments they make. And you mentioned a minute ago before we started, you were talking about how Montana's probably a more conservative state than Tennessee.
Yeah, I would think so. In a lot of ways.
So how did you combat those arguments and get that support?
You can feel things in the air, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
In 2004, when we legalized medical marijuana, it's a pretty strong message that people in Montana had changed their minds. Now, we have a very libertarian bend. Our Senator John Tester's a Democrat, and the other one, Steve Daines is a Republican, and so we've gone back and forth with the vote. People tend to vote for the candidate more than the party in recent years. But we've had a big influx of new population as of the pandemic. A lot of people are fleeing the cities on the West Coast, and it's pretty easy living in Montana, and so a lot of them want to come there. So we've seen a pretty substantial increase in population. Most of those folks have been Republican. And so I think the state is, wholly Republican at this point. If you look at the ballot in 2020, I mean, the Republican won the dog catcher. I mean, like every single office was a Republican victory, but we also won marijuana. It's like 58% of the vote. Again, we got more votes than anybody except for Donald Trump. We're talking hundreds of thousands. There's about 1.3 million residents in Montana. We've got 3 times more cows than that. But for as far as residents are concerned, and there's like 700,000 voters or so, and we came in and won 58% in Montana, and it was complicated because we had these 2 different initiatives, and so it got very legally complicated. I remember at one point we had 6 lawyers that had lawyers,
Really?
Yeah, and we sued the Supreme, we sued the state and went to the Supreme Court over electronic signatures during the pandemic. And then we kind of had to reinvent the signature gathering process because, there was a pandemic on, and so we had individual pins for each person to use to sign the initiatives, and you kind of stand back and point at it from over there, But doing that, we still got, 2 initiatives on the ballot, and we changed the Montana State Constitution. It was complicated because, our polling showed that nobody was going to take it if it wasn't 21 and over. And in Montana, you're an adult for all legal purposes except for alcohol consumption, according to the state constitution. And so if we were going to make it 21 and over, we had to go and change the state constitution so that they could say, okay, this is just for 21 and over. So it got complicated, and so it ended up being really expensive. But because everybody else's campaigns have been shut down by the pandemic, we still had a campaign going. We attracted a lot of donor money, and I think we had the most expensive campaign for marijuana legalization per voter in the history.
Well, so it's been legal now 2 years for adult recreational use, correct?
Yeah, but legal recreational adult sales have only been legal since the beginning of 21.
So you still have a year's data at least.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Over
absolutely.
A year's data.
And the interesting thing was the tax allocations.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is here's what I'm asking, because for Tennessee, aside from the ethical, moral, right or wrong, all that kind of stuff on marijuana use, my concern is, did the state benefit, and then has there been any negative repercussions that you've seen from weed?
No, we've seen no increase in crime of any sort. We've seen no negative societal repercussions. And, like the prohibition people that come in from D.C. and campaign against us frequently cite this study from the Centennial Institute, which is Colorado Christian Institute, and they factor in like every single expense that like the state of Colorado gets through social services. Like if there's a baby born somewhere that has disabilities, then they're throwing that in the marijuana pot, And so it was a really illegitimate study. And so, but they still banner around, it's going to cost $4 per dollar that you make in tax revenue. That's proven to be ludicrous in Montana. There's just not a heavy societal cost for marijuana legalization. For alcohol legalization, there is. But we all accept that. And so, we have to look at these things logically and say, is it worth putting people in prison? Is it worth ruining people's lives? Is it worth creating a whole underclass of citizens that can't access social services or jobs? Do we really want to do that? And what's the cost benefit analysis there? I think we were arresting like 1,800 people a year in Montana for simple possession, like around a gram. And most of them were young Native American people. And so all those arrests are gone. And so those kids can work for NASA now. They can go to the military, they can do whatever they want because they weren't arrested and charged with, a misdemeanor or sometimes a felony for marijuana possession. And so it's had very positive societal benefits of, stopping those arrests. And as far as the vet population of Montana, Montana's like Tennessee, where Tennessee's a volunteer state. Montana has the highest per capita ratio of veterans for any state. And so, on the campaign, when I talked to these guys about legalization, they said, hey, I'm using marijuana for my PTSD or for my back pain or whatever, but there's no way I'm going to get a medical marijuana card because I don't want them to know that I have marijuana and guns, because these guys all have hunting rifles. And when you live in Montana, you're going to hunt, right? So when they have marijuana cards, they're concerned that the government might come in and say, hey, you can't do that. And so they were excited about adult use legalization because that gave them access without having to be on some list somewhere. And so that was a big societal benefit for the veterans.
Is the money, I guess, tax revenue, and then I'm sure there's other revenue too. Like I'm sure we hadn't even got into how you guys are. I assume it's privately funded grows that are regulated by the state.
We had vertical grow operations. Like I'd say there were about 280 to 300 medical marijuana operators, and those people had completely vertical business models. They couldn't trade with each other. Like if you were going to sell it, you had to make it. You had to grow it, you had to make it. And so they've gotten real innovative as business people.
Well, I know Missouri was looking at, or Missouri did, where you would get, it was like 3 licenses. There was like manufacturer, distribution, and something else.
Yeah, I think we've got 7 license types in Montana. And one of those is the Native American combined use license because we want to give them entry into the market at the same time as we gave the medical marijuana folks limited entry into the market. Because I helped, I wrote the initiative with the lawyers, and when we went to the legislature, they changed it completely, but we negotiated that with the legislature, and so there were a lot of things that we, worked in there and worked on. I mean, lobbying is a give and take process, so, we had to give up some things, but we got a lot of things in the process. And one of those things that we got was the ability to do business with each other. I mean, it only makes sense so that you can specialize, in your specific field instead of trying to be every instrument in the band, as it were, as a business. If they had to grow the grain and grind it and make bread and then sell it at Kroger, you'd see very limited choice, right? And so that was the case before, is it was all, completely vertical, and you were tethered to one producer as a patient. So you signed up with Jerry, then you stayed with Jerry, and he was your guy, and a lot of people were comfortable with that because they knew who their customers were, and they knew what their customer base was. When it went to recreational, it's just marketing at that point. Where do you have your shop? What's your traffic flow, et cetera. But we did some projections. We worked with the University of Montana to do a tax projection, to see what the revenue was going to be. And we projected in the first year that there'd be somewhere around $260 million in marijuana sales in Montana in 2022. And those predictions have come pretty accurate. I mean, we're actually above that. And so there's a 20%.
Is any of it earmarked for something specific?
Yeah. A lot of, pretty much all of it is by the governor's office. And with the initiative, we have the initiative process where you guys have to go through the legislature. And so in the initiative process, we talked about where we wanted it spent, and a lot of that was conservation stuff. Folks wanted to put towards trails and, nature preserves and habitat restoration, et cetera, because Montanans love their outdoors. It's a big part of living there. But the legislature had different ideas about where to put it, and the governor had different ideas. And so he created some different funds through the legislative process. One of them is the Heart Fund, and it's like a $9 million bucket that catches the first, revenues of the program and then puts those towards drug courts. And they've got like a 3-to-1 federal match on that. So it's phenomenal, money. If you're going to put it towards a federal match, then multiply your money 3 times. That's great use of those dollars. But the rest of it goes towards different things. There's a property tax relief for widows of veterans. There's some stuff that goes towards the trails. There's other programs that it supports. Like we had to get new drug dogs in Montana, right? Because the marijuana drug dogs are no longer relevant. So they had to ship those guys to Kansas or something and get new drug dogs. And so pretty much every major police department in the states use marijuana money already to replace their drug dogs. And then there's local option taxes. So when we designed the tax system, we said, hey, we want to make sure that the state gets a piece and that the local governments can get a piece. And so the local governments have the ability to further tax an additional 3% within their localities. And that just, the sales that happen within their borders, they can tax. And they also have the ability to say, no, we don't want, recreational marijuana in our county. We don't want the adult use sales in our county.
Well, but is it still statewide? I assume then statewide is still legal, though, for use.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just can't purchase it there.
Yeah, and so you just go to the county next door and spend your tax money there.
Same as wet and dry counties in Arkansas.
Yeah, it's very similar to wet and dry. But you look at California, you look at Washington, you look at Oregon, they all have very similar models, where they have wet and dry counties, as it were. And it starts out where there's a lot of rural counties that don't take it, and then eventually they say, what are we doing? We got to get some of this tax money.
Well, let me ask you this question, and this is kind of putting you on the spot, so you can answer it or defer. But, a lot of people here in Tennessee still have, and this is just my perception of it from talking to people,
Sure.
have resistance to marijuana or any cannabis, whether it's vaping or the gummies or any of that, any form of cannabis.
Sure.
Just generally resistive of recreational. So what is the argument, other than potential tax dollars, do you have any other argument on why they should be supportive of recreational marijuana use?
We studied in depth what people's opinions were informed by in relation to their opinions on marijuana as we went forward in the campaign. And it seems that if you have a familial connection, like you've got some stoner cousin that lives on your aunt's couch and never leaves,
Yeah.
then you have a negative perception of marijuana. But if you've encountered it through your friends, then you've got a more positive perception because, you're not involved in those people's lives. You don't, it's like, hey, I just know they're a good timer and they don't fight at the bar, right?
Yeah. Well, I said something to you earlier about that. Josh cut over while I'm getting my drink. Anyway, about when I was a deputy all those years, I don't ever remember fighting anybody high on weed. I'd fight people that were drunk, and I fought people on other drugs, but not marijuana.
No, I think that we've got 100 years of prohibition that have informed people's opinions on this, and so they're gonna honestly, what happens is that as the population ages, the people who had the harsher opinions die out.
Yeah.
Now, but like I said, if you look at the demographics in Montana, it was 58%. In a heavily Republican election, like the most Republican election I've ever seen. And so the same people that vote for Donald Trump vote for legal marijuana in Montana. And if somebody's doing something like drinking alcohol, then I think it's pretty tough for them to say, "Oh, look at you, stoners! You guys are."
I agree.
You guys are the bane of society. I think we all know better than that at this point. And I think that if you have any experience in the real world outside of your home, you know that alcohol is a menace to society.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a marijuana user, but I do regularly drink alcohol, and
Sure.
I agree that marijuana is much less. It causes less aggression. It impairs your decision making less. Even though I personally don't have the experience to really base that on.
Sure.
So
Professional experience, though. I mean, as a police officer.
oh no, yeah, but but
say-
even more than that, I've looked at the studies. There have been studies in medical journals that show that there's positive. There's positive uses for marijuana.
Oh, absolutely.
Even recreationally for people with anxiety or you got a stressful day. Or
I mean, if you choose, I mean, let's put them on the board and choose. And you've got the ability to choose between marijuana or opioids or.
Oh, sure, that's another great point. Is here in Tipton County, especially, I know Shelby and all the surrounding counties are dealing with it. Is one of the huge problems that we're dealing with criminal defense is the opioid addiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
People abusing opioids, and I think if marijuana were legal, I don't view it as a gateway necessarily, no more than alcohol.
Well, I mean, let's
it may
talk
be something
about
that
that.
offsets
I think trauma is the gateway, right? I mean, we've all got issues. Everybody's got some kind of issue. I'm not your mama, but
My mama did tell you hi, by the way.
Okay. I went by the house.
She said, "So good to see you."
I drove by the house the other day, and I was thinking, "Oh, that's where we used to fight with swords." So
I got some of the stuff here.
right.
Where do you see it on them texts?
It's on the comments.
But anyway,
Sorry.
I mean, it's just I think that people are honest with themselves and they start to drop their hypocrisy. But it's also based on their experience with it. And what's going to happen, guys, is before you ever have recreational marijuana, you're going to have medical marijuana. And then people will see that it's got extremely positive benefits and that it's their teachers and their, civic leaders and the people they go to church with that are getting the salve and getting a little smoke, because they've got liver cancer or because they've got a paralyzed stomach from MS, or they've got PTSD from the war or from a domestic incident when they were married or had a kid or you name it.
Yeah.
Again, I think that trauma is the gateway, and so everybody's got issues, whether they're physical or psychological, and you put them on that spectrum and you say, okay, here's your choices. And in society today, the choices that we lay out legally are horrendous. I mean, here you go. You can either have alcohol or you can go to the doctor and he'll put you on some antipsychotic. And, we can see the results of that in society. I mean, there's, mother's little helper, as it were, so frequently, Xanax prescriptions for folks. And how much of that could we avoid if marijuana were legal and folks could just, have a piece of brownie or,
Yeah.
and I don't want to over medicalize marijuana. I think that there are legitimate uses. I don't think it's going to cure everything, but I've seen CBD salves and I've seen people respond to marijuana that had Parkinson's in miraculous ways. And, I had kidney disease for 2007-ish, when it got really painful. And I immediately went and got medical marijuana. And, it kept me from being a dope fiend. I mean, I still took hydrocodone and had to because I had severe pain. But I was able to augment that, so that I didn't have to go overboard with it, so that I could sometimes take a break from that and go to something else.
And I want to talk a little more about the marijuana later, but I know some people that are watching are interested in the donor issue you just dealt with.
Sure.
So you mentioned the kidney disease. So walk me through, like, what happened, what that happened,
Sure.
and then how bad you were. And then, of course, what we've all talked about was basically an angel came in, and it sounds like it now has saved 4 people for being an organ donor. So tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was working for NRA, and I was here in Tennessee actually when I first got the job. Worked for National Rifle Association back in 2007, and I'd seen a dentist, and I got some infection. It was like a staph infection. Nothing you'd really think about significantly, But then something set in like a flu on me, and by the end of it, I was having problems that just started cascading.
What year was that?
07.
07.
Yeah, and I was so sick I couldn't drive, but Jamie was like, "Oh, we got to go back to Montana, no matter what." And so we went back and we stopped off at Ron Sutton's house along the way, and then we went on up because he was in, I think, Minnesota or Wisconsin or something at the time. And we went across North Dakota. I remember I got home and I was so sick, and so I finally went to the doctor, and they said, you seem to be having all these problems. You seem to be passing blood. And so I went to doctors for like 2 years in Helena, and it's a small town, it's the state capital, but it's still like 30,000 people. It's like living in Covington, And so eventually I said, I'll just go to the Mayo Clinic, after 2 years of not finding the answer, what I was looking for. And they said, like 24 hours, they work you up, put you in every test on earth. And then they told me I had this kidney disease. And I said, it just started when I went to this dentist, and the guy was like, yeah, that's what happens. Sometimes you get an infection, and then your immune system goes awry. And then bada bing, bada boom, you got kidney disease, this IgA nephritis. And so they told me, 10, 15 years, you're probably going to have kidney failure, but you're lucky you caught it early. Mm-hmm. We could kind of stave it off for a few years. And so I took medicine and then, just worked around the pain. It got really severe, though. And as I was going through, it was around 21 where I just was losing all my energy and, sleeping an additional 3-4 hours a day. And, I knew what was going on. I was going to the doctor regularly, and I had blood tests regularly, and he said, we're going to have to put you on the list for kidney. And, it's really intimidating. And I'm a fundraiser. I raised $9 million to legalize marijuana in Montana. I've raised millions of dollars for the NRA and for, various causes out there. And so I raise money in my job. I'm always asking people for money. But when you're thinking about asking somebody for an organ, mm-hmm. changes the equation. And so you go through the first people that and you're like, what about my family members? Mm-hmm. My sister gave me her left hand if I asked her for it, even though she got hair for
is it based on just blood type that might match?
Yeah, well, and there's this kidney registry, the National Kidney Registry, where you can somebody can give a kidney in your name, and then they give you a voucher for a kidney.
Yeah.
And so that's the National Kidney Registry, and that's what I was thinking about, and I was getting on that list, and I talked to Aaron Huffman about it, and he was like, look, I'll give my kidney to you, and I don't know about giving somebody, I don't know if I'm going to see some other dude walking around with my kidney, and so I was like, no, I can respect that, and my family members all had some sort of health problem, and so I was just, getting to the point to where I was going to have to start asking people. And I was working the dispensary pretty frequently in Helena, Cannabis Corner in 21. And when you're selling medical marijuana, you talk to a lot of people, especially if you run a small shop. And so I talked to a lot of the people that came in. There were like 5 people that had donated kidneys mm-hmm. that I talked to that were my patients, in 2020, 2021. And so, they were like, look, it's all going to work out. I've been riding this kidney for, this is my second kidney, and so I wasn't really scared of the surgery, it's like more, am I going to be able to work? Am I going to be able to provide for my family? Am I going to be able to, in the interim, before I find a donor? And so, you start thinking about that stuff, and I was just getting more tired. And the guy that I work with, Ted Dick, he's the former executive director of the Montana Democratic Party, and he's a real swift guy. And I teamed up with him on the legalization campaign. He's actually the guy that approached me about it. And so Ted and I work together all the time at the Montana Cannabis Guild, which is our trade association. But Ted drives all the time. Like, I never drive. Ted drives everywhere. And we travel like 1,000 miles a week at minimum, so we're always on the road. But I just slept in between meetings, like get in the car and go to sleep. So Ted was just hauling my corpse around, like propping me up for meetings. It was almost like Weekend at Bernie's, it was like getting that bad. And so, anyway, when
was the pain getting worse and everything?
Yeah, it was pretty
bad?
constant. When I went in for the surgery, just they asked how much pain medication I was taking, and I told them, and they gasped. They were like, "Oh my God, that's a lot." And it's like, yeah, I'm sure it is, because I've been in horrible pain for 10 years. But I know my doctors well. It's a small town, and so they know I'm not out, selling hydrocodone to my neighbors or something. So I've had a steady pain medication prescription with my doctor, and we've dealt with it, and sometimes you just got to suffer. You don't want to tell people that. That's the truth. And your doctor, like, when they have an honest conversation with you about pain management, because pain management it's wild. Like, nobody knows where your pain's coming from so often, or how to treat it, or what to do. And that's where marijuana comes in so handy for a lot of people that have cancer or MS or something, with severe pain that might not react well to opioids. But you got to get used to this stuff. And so, there's processes you go through that you have to consult your doctor on. And after 10 or so years, you kind of get in the groove. And then things radically change. And they say, oh, you got to get a kidney now. Like, you're going to be put on dialysis soon, which is hell on earth. Like, dialysis is really bad for people. So, anyway, I've been worried about this, and I talked to my sister about it, because, you read the registry literature, and they're like, get an advocate. Like, get 2 advocates, family members, loved ones, somebody that can help you find a donor and activate them, make videos for social media, like, talk about it and talk to people about it. And so I was getting ready to do that, like putting these public relations wheels in motion, and my sister called me, and I was at a meeting in Bozeman, and my phone rang. And, you're like in a meeting, so it's like, oh, I'll call him back, and it's like 5 more times the phone rings, and then my wife texts me, and she's like, answer the phone, your sister's calling. And so Jennifer called me, and she said, hey, I just talked to Barbie, who's a hairdresser, and Jennifer's a hairdresser in Brighton. And so she said, that one of our friends and associates had passed, and that Barbie had called her and said, they're thinking about donating their organs. And at the time, I didn't know who it was. My sister didn't tell me. And so I just talked to her all day about it. And then she was really insistent that I give somebody a call, because, you got to be proactive about these things if you're looking for an organ out there. And it's a difficult thing to talk to people about, but you just got to get past that in some way. And so anyway, I was just kind of stunned, and so I called Ron Sutton, and I talked to him about it, and he said, I said, do you know who this is? And Ron said, yeah, I know who this is. This is Katie. We knew her back in our college days, and I think she hung out with Cynthia Smith some. And I said, is it the Katie I'm thinking about? And he's like, I don't know if it's that Katie, but it's Katie Van Duzer. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember the Van Duzer family, because my brother went to preschool at First Baptist, I think that's where their kids went. And so it was a different Katie than I was thinking about. But anyway, so I called Big Steve, and Big Steve, of course. And I said, Big Steve, do you remember Katie? And he said, oh, yeah, call Brian. Brian knows her. And so he said, if Brian doesn't know her, Brian knows a family member. And so I called Brian, or texted him, or I can't even remember. But he said, I could just make one phone call here. Let me make a phone call. And so Brian made the phone call, and I think he talked to Kelly and Kelly Brainerd, and she said she said, this is exactly what the family's looking for, you know. And so, you know, it's a tough situation, but, you know, at the point to where your family member is deceased and you don't have any choice anymore about where to go, and, you know, you're thinking about, you know, what's best for them and what they want, and that's got to be like the toughest moment in your life as a parent, you know.
I can only imagine. And just so that everybody knows, I did speak to Miss Donna, who's a friend of all of ours. They're great people, and she's given me some more information on that now there have been 4 people that have been saved from donations from.
That's awesome.
Yeah, from Katie's organs, and she wanted me to tell you that she doesn't know you that well, but she loves you, and that she wanted to hug you before you left. That's what she said.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's like I said at my fundraiser, I've asked people for $1 million before and got it, and, you know, those are tough asks, but not like this ask, you know. And when I talked to Kelly, she said, you know, this is exactly what the family's looking for, somebody they know that they can get, you know, that they can follow along and know, you know, that their daughter's still alive. And so anyway, there were some complications because the hospital in Memphis had not yet processed my paperwork, because, you know, I'd been signed up at Salt Lake to get a transplant, but, you know, I was thinking about it, and I was just sitting around thinking about it one night, and I said, you know, I'm most likely to get a kidney donated to me from somebody I went to high school with. Let's just be honest, you know, because how well do you know people as you become an adult? You know, like you make your best friends in first grade probably. So I figured.
Work for being Aaron.
Yeah. And so I, you know, it's like, here I am. We hung out, you know, what, 9th, 10th grade,
Yeah.
8th grade even. And, you know, so I figured, hey, somebody that really knows me, knows my family, one of my cousins, I don't even know, you know, it's going to be my donor. And I can't imagine sitting in a hotel room for 6 weeks in Salt Lake City, you know, like, because you got to be right here at the hospital, you know, because they've got to check up on you like once a week or more. And if anything goes wrong, they want you to be there, you know, in an hour or so. And, you know, because it's touch and go at first with any kind of organ donation. They don't know how your body's going to react. And so on May 14th, I got the call from, I think it's the 12th, I got a call from my sister. And then on the 14th, the transplant center coordinator, Ben, this guy out of UT here, called me and said, "Hey man, are you able to get on a plane and get to Memphis?" And I was like, "Probably not." You know, like, you don't understand like how many flights do we have out of Montana. So I checked every city and there was no way I could get there. You know, so my wife put on Facebook, like, you know, like, can somebody get us to Salt Lake so we can catch a flight? And so I was sitting in the living room with Steve, and we were talking about Big Steve. And we were talking about how, you know, it's like, what am I going to do here? Like, drive to Salt Lake? And my business partner, Ted, was there, and he was like, I'll drive you to Salt Lake. Let's go. You know, like, we can start now. If we need to turn around, we will. And so everybody was searching on their phones for flights. You know, it's like, is there a flight from Salt Lake to Memphis at all tonight? Because I was like, you know, if I get there at 2 p.m. tomorrow, will everything
Josh,
be
open
okay
that door.
then?
It's hot.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if I asked the transplant team, you know, we went back and forth for at least 3 hours, you know, like, if I get there this time, can you get me in? You know, it's always no. So it's getting kind of depressing at this point, you know. And Big Steve was like, hey, I found a flight. You know, he was been looking on his phone. And so I put my credit card information in, and the friggin' thing disappeared, you know. And so I had to break out my laptop and, you know, use my travel skills that I'd gained working for the NRA. Because when I worked for NRA, I traveled Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska just constantly. And so I was always booking flights. And so anyway, I found a flight that left from Salt Lake and, you know, landed in Memphis at like 9 a.m. And they said, all right, if you can do that, we'll get you in. You know, we can do the donation, we can do the transplant. And so I just had to get to Salt Lake. You know, it's like, I don't think I can get there by driving and get there in time. And so a friend that is connected to Grand Street Theater, and Grand Street Theater, my wife is on the board of directors there. It's much like the theaters here that Brian and you participate in.
The Ruffin.
Yeah, Ruffin, and I know Brian does some stuff in Memphis as well with some playhouses. But we've got a nice community theater there in Helena, Montana called the Grand Street Theater, and my kids are always acting, and they're always in a new play. And they've got like Tony Award-winning directors. It's a nice little place. Montana seems to attract those folks that are, you know, like a little more talented because they want to retire somewhere nice. And so, like, our law school's got ex-Supreme Court justices from every state because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I can fish, huh?
Yeah.
No problem. Because there's a river that runs right through campus. The river runs through it, as it were, at the University of Montana. But anyway, a friend said, hey, I know somebody with a plane. And then these people in Bozeman, Bridger Aerospace, who do, like, scout flights for fires, because, we have wildfires out west. And so you have to have little planes going and searching for little trails of smoke so they can send in special forces teams of firefighters, to put the fires out. Anyway, they said, hey, we'll give you a ride to Salt Lake. No problem. We just got this new plane. We need to put some hours on it. It was awesome. It was like this cool little Firewatch plane with 6 or 8 seats, and so I called my wife because she had taken the kids to the theater to, they were in some play at the time, and I was like, hey, just meet me at the airport so you guys can say bye to me, and I'm going to leave for 6 weeks. And so I just grabbed some crap and threw it in my carry-on. I don't think anything I brought was relevant. It's like I got the base for the toothbrush, but not the top. It's like, it's not toothbrush. What the hell is it? It's not toothpaste. What is this? Some sort of muscle cream or something.
A little dab will do you.
Yeah. So anyway, Big Steve went to the airport with me with Ted, and Jamie met us there, and hopped on this tiny plane and flew to Salt Lake, and it was cool. It was like a Indiana Jones adventure as I boarded this small plane and waved to the family, and we landed at night. So I always like to fly at night. You see the city coming up, and I got a cheeseburger and waited for my flight and everything worked out. And I was in Atlanta and I was headed to Memphis, and I went and told the pilots, I was like, look, I'm going in for an organ donation, so you guys make this a little quicker, And so I think we arrived like 10 minutes early. So I don't know if it was because they were making the extra effort or just because we had favorable winds. But we got there, the stewardess just told everybody to sit down and shut up so they could get me to the front, They were like, everybody just chill out. We got an organ transplant coming here. And so I got out and I went down to luggage, and Aaron and my mom were down there, and so Aaron was driving my mom's van, and she hopped in the back, and like he just took off. I think the door was still open, it's like running over people as we're leaving the airport. He might have taken out a few cones, I don't know. Anyway, we got to the hospital real quickly, and they started prepping me, and they usually spend like a year prepping you for a transplant, so they got to do all this crap, and these social workers have to talk to you. It's like a CIA interrogation. You sure you're doing it? You sure, And it's like, sign this paper, sign these papers in triplicate, And so they're like, you realize this could all go south and you just die, It's like, yeah, whatever, It's like, watch this video. Okay, you've seen enough of it. That's, like, we'll move on to the next thing. And they bring in dietitians and psychologists and transplant team and pain management teams, and then they finally bring in the surgeon, and Aaron and I were sitting there, and my mom, and the surgeon's like 24 or so. This guy is like straight fresh out of medical school, and like he doesn't make eye contact with any of us. He's like looking at the floor and talking to us, and he leaves the room. Aaron goes, yes. He said, that's the one we want. He said, that guy probably just does this. Yeah. He probably plays video games at home where he does surgery. You know, like we're not in danger of this guy's social life getting in the way of his surgical prowess. This guy spends all of his time doing this. But he was young and obviously very talented, and I've got a foot-long scar now where he cut me open. But anyway, once I got, processed, and they still didn't know, if there was going to be a direct match. It's a very interesting process you go through, the blood type matches, and so let's get you here and prep you, but we still got to send this blood off to Vandy, and that's why I had to get there at 9 a.m. because they had to, take like a gallon of blood from me and send it all to Vandy. I've never had so much blood taken in my life. They had to stop and wait for a while, make me eat something, and then go back in, But they sent it off to Vandy for a white blood cell match, and essentially put pieces of, tissue samples from the donor and then your white blood cells and see if they go to war. And evidently mine were very compatible. And so, but they didn't, I'm prepped and on the table, and like waiting to go into surgery, and the anesthesia guy's like sitting there, just waiting. And I was talking to these guys, because you get really nervous when something like this going on.
Sure.
Anytime I get nervous, I get manic, so I'm just talking to these guys, and I was asking everybody where they were from. This guy says, I'm from Ohio. And so the only thing I think was like the Apocalypse Now monologue, like, you ever been on the river? The Ohio River, sir? And so I started like going through this monologue with this guy from Apocalypse Now, and he had no idea what the hell I was talking about, And so I finally was like, Marlon Brando, Apocalypse Now, when he catches the assassin that's going to come kill him. And he's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. And so, like, I think he was just waiting for the go-ahead to plunge me, And so
Knock him out.
they came in, they gave me updates every now and then, and they were like, well, it's going to be about 20 minutes for the blood test results to get here. And I was like, what do you mean? I thought we'd already passed that part of the process. I thought we were good to go. I thought we were like just waiting on, like the go ahead from some surgeon. He was like, oh, no, we still got to get this white blood cell match done, And so that's when I started freaking out.
It was shocking to me the amount of things that had to fall into place.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing.
I mean, it was just like a monumental amount of dominoes that had to fall just right.
So Brian Huffman's in here, by the way, for those that can't see him. What is the statistical chance of a match like that?
I don't know.
I would say it's super rare.
Yeah, but again, I mean, I was thinking about this when I moved my stuff to Memphis. I was like, the truth is, like, I'm kin to half the people in Tipton County in some way. I think the Van Duzers are down a turkey scratch. That's where my grandparents were. I mean, you follow it far back enough, we might all be kin.
Yeah.
Everybody's kin to Lavelle's.
Yeah, and I, like when I first started dating my wife, because she grew up over on Bringle, and I grew up down in Burleson on Lavelle Road, and we had to go meet each other's grandparents to make sure we weren't cousins. You know? I mean,
I can relate.
that's how it works down there. And so, like, I was really thinking about that when I decided, hey, I'm going to move my surgery to Memphis, and plus my mom lives in Memphis, it's like in Burleson. So, anyway, so I don't know what the odds are, but it worked out really well, and I know that while I was there, I met some other people that had gotten received organs from Katie and her family. It was her cousin, I believe, got her liver, and she was on the same unit, like 4 doors down from me. And but when they plugged Katie's kidney into me, it just immediately began working. I mean, like, it stunned the doctors how much fluid I was putting off. They were like, look, you got to stop drinking water. Like, you're getting dehydrated. Put some Gatorade in you for a while, because you're putting out so much fluid. Essentially, as soon as they plugged it in and pushed go, it was like the organ had never been on ice.
Still, and everything's been good so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's very painful to have surgery. I'm sure that any of your fans out there that are women are like, oh, you're a wuss. You got a C-section and went back to weightlifting the next day, But I am not a woman, and so I am very susceptible to pain. And I'm a redhead, and so, pain medication and all that's a little different for me. But, no, it hurts to the dickens. It's not as bad as it was before. I mean, like, the hematuria, which is the bleeding that was happening from my old kidneys, was extremely painful. It's just, and the doctor said it only is like 1 in 100,000, of the IgA nephritis cases has this pain syndrome. But my doctor in Helena, my nephrologist, that's a kidney specialist, he had another patient that had the same pain syndrome with it, and it's just like if your body is putting out a lot of blood, then it's going to affect your vascular system, and so it was just presenting with a lot of pain, and now that my kidneys, I've got 3 kidneys now. That's how it works. They don't go in.
Oh, they don't take the other one out?
No, they don't take anything out.
Oh.
So you get, I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a tripod. I'm a 3 kidney, but the other 2 they kind of shrivel up and go away. They said within 3 years they probably won't be relevant anymore.
I know, obviously you're on pain medicines and whatnot, but is there other medication you have to take?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's anybody that gets an organ has to take anti-rejection drugs. I mean, and that's the frontiers of science, right? Aaron and I were talking about this the other morning. They've found ways to genetically alter organs from family members so that they match exactly. Like they treat people with bone marrow transplants before they go in for the donation, and then their DNA changes to, it's the same as the kids or whoever they're donating to. These parents did this recently. They donated a kidney apiece to their twins that were born without kidneys, and they had to take no rejection drugs because they changed their DNA. Now, you saw recently in the headlines that this guy received a heart from a pig. Well, they had injected his, they had cloned this pig and put his DNA in it, and so it was his heart, by all practical purposes. It's his DNA. And so, I talked to my doctor about, what's the frontier like what's next, and he said, listen, what's next is go find a kidney and don't worry about what's next, because they're not going to invent a way to 3D print a kidney in the next 10 years, because unlike a heart, which you can build on lattice, it's all one type of cell. He said that there's like 14 types of cells in a kidney, and so it's still, donation's still the gold standard for kidney disease. And when I worked for the NRA back 2008 or 10, I had a donor in Jackson Hole, and he was actually a University of Alabama doctor. And I asked him one day, like, what do you do at University of Alabama as a doctor, And he said, oh, I'm a kidney disease researcher. I said, oh, I've got this kidney disease. He said, you're lucky you don't have liver disease or something, because kidney disease is what the government spent the most money researching. He said, we can slap a kidney in and out of you, no problem, And so I wasn't so worried about, what was the result of the kidney, even though I have to take a lot of anti-rejection drugs. I was worried about, the fact that it might not happen. Like, you want to talk about the anxiety that you have as somebody that's waiting for a kidney or any kind of organ, is that it might not happen. I'll deal with the problems after the fact,
So then clearly you're a supporter of organ donation.
Yeah, and I'm an organ donor. I don't know if they'll want mine. I'm going to hopefully use them up.
Well, you might have something else they want.
Yeah, but my mom she's an RN, and she worked transplant in hearts in Memphis, and she worked in ICU, and she saw a lot of people die who were organ donors and their organs harvested. And she said, listen, they come and get your eyes first thing, because so many kids have severe ocular disease, and if they get their cornea, then it may save their vision, especially as a kid, because they can grow into it. But Brian, his granddad was legally blind. And so we saw firsthand every day the challenges that somebody went through. Yeah. And he still worked. He worked for Texas Gas, and he was legally blind.
Yeah, he went completely blind.
That mic's not on, Brian, if you want to jump on that one.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, people... I got a fever when he was 19 or so, I believe. He was best friends with my grandpa. And my grandpa got sent off to World War II, so, everything happens for a reason. But, how many people do you know that have had liver disease or kidney disease or, something where an organ donor could have saved them? It's substantial. And there's so many people waiting on the list, and some people are willing to give an organ for somebody they don't even know. Anybody out there waiting for an organ, I would tell them, you got to get out there and market yourself. You got to get out there and talk to people about it and say, hey, I'm looking for some life.
Ben said that Peepaw also played the shit out of the organ.
Yes, yes, he did.
And
I don't remember
It's all by feel and
yeah.
and it's all by by memorization.
He drove.
He drove. I drove him for
I
a long
remember.
time.
I do
Aaron
remember
drove.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he just memorized everything. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
could see 10 feet blurry.
Yeah, and he had this. He called it his little bullseye or whatever. It's like a super big magnifying thing that he would read with. But now he went blind, completely blind, for about 6 weeks. He said he was sitting under a tree and he got a bad headache, and then next thing you know, he couldn't see anything.
Wow.
And then after that, it came back, and so it was blurry, and he could kind of read, but he did everything by feel. Everything by feel.
He built a windmill that generated electricity in the yard. He built a cabin, the little house.
And he'd send us out to go get some nuts for the bolts or whatever. He'd feel them no, that's not the right size. Give me another one. And that's what he did. But that brings up a really good point as far as you were talking about organ donation.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the statistics would be, but most people think they just check the box on their
Driver's license.
and when they something unfortunate happens to them, then you get it. But you've also got the folks that would
Yeah.
come out and just say, look, hey, I need a kidney. Okay, I'll give you one. As opposed to, something tragic happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens all the time. And the National Kidney Registry matches those people up.
Right.
Like if you're...
Well, I didn't know till you said something, Pepper, that I didn't know that there's a give and get. Like you're talking about the voucher thing.
Yeah.
That-
You don't
Is
even have
Is
to be a blood
Is
type.
that a new
Yeah.
thing?
I think it's about 5 years old. But it just coordinates. There's like a chain of kidney operations that have to go on at once.
Right.
And they coordinate across hospitals, and sometimes you got to go. They're like, "Oh, you got to go to Philly to make this happen." So you got to do what you got to do. People that are waiting for an organ don't give a crap where you send them. It's like, "Oh, we have to send you to Baghdad. Now let's do this."
Well,
Like-
what's the alternative?
Right. It's the hell that I was living. It is mild compared to what people on dialysis are doing.
Well, and assuming that it seems to be going well, and obviously we pray that it continues to go well, but assuming that everything's fine, I mean, arguably it's a new lease on life for you, right?
Yeah, and they give you conservative numbers, and they say, oh well, you got 7 good years with a transplanted organ, but you talk to people, and like I'm on Facebook forums with people that are organ donor recipients, and they talk about 20 years very frequently. You got to take these medications.
Yeah.
Like you got to do it on a schedule. You got to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and take some, and then you got to wait an hour to eat, and then you eat, and then you take more, and then you
How old are your kids?
my kids are 13 and 10.
13 and 10. So it arguably gets you at least through to them being adults.
Yeah,
which
I
for
could
your
see them getting
kids
married.
so like my point is even if people don't like you, your kids are benefiting, because they got a daddy still.
Sure.
Wow.
No, in Helena, we enjoy Helena a lot. They did a front page story on my kidney donation in the local paper, the Helena IR, and we had a GoFundMe page up, and folks were generous and helped us out a lot, with the travel expenses and stuff. And you find a lot of friends that you don't know you had in moments like these, and I appreciate everything that everybody's done. And, everybody's been so generous, and the Van Duzer family was so generous. And like you said, I think that Katie's donation has now saved 4 separent people.
Minimum. 4
Yeah,
people.
and you don't even know whose life has just been made better. Like,
And not to mention the residual benefit from people that love those people
yeah, absolutely.
that are benefiting from them still being able to be here.
Well, it's taking something that's extremely tragic and at least finding some good. Out of
Yeah,
it.
clearly. So Miss Donna's one of the sweetest people I know.
Yes,
she was
absolutely.
there for me back when I went through. I always reference my own personal divorce. That's my big thing, But she was there, and she was she's been a staple in my life, and so has her family. And I've always thought highly of all her children. And so, I mean, obviously, it's tragic that she had to lose a child. I can't imagine how she felt, but I would hope it gives her some peace knowing that sacrifice has helped so many other people.
Yeah, I think that's the only. Sometimes that's what you hold on to. It's like, what kind of positive can I find out of this situation? Because we're all looking for answers. It's like, is there some sort of rhyme or reason behind what happened? And in my life, the lives of my children, or are we on? Are we just casting the dice? What's life really about? And so you look for those positives. You're like desperately seeking those positives in your moments of grief like that. So I hope that the fact that she saved my life is a positive for the family. I know that, like I said, I saw her aunt at the hospital, and her family was there, and she's got an adult daughter that's got children, and they're probably coming up on great grandchildren or something these days. And so I'm sure those people are extremely grateful, and just the life change that somebody that receives that organ donation. I've seen people that need livers to start getting that jaundice. My dad had liver disease before the COVID got him, and it was rough. I mean, it eats you up. And so if somebody can be saved, and I think with some liver donations they do pieces.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna-
The liver is one of the organs. I don't know if it's the only one that can self-regenerate.
Sure, like a lizard tail.
Right.
So yeah, I think that even that could have been multiple people. So, but yeah, I would have taken more than one kidney, absolutely. But they only put one in you, and so I got this 3rd kidney that I've got now, and
So you arguably could have 4.
I know a guy that
I did not know that.
did, one of my dispensary patients, he had gotten his mother's kidney at birth because he was born with some internal organ issues, and his kidneys were there, but they weren't functioning. And then his mother's kidney burned out on him after 18 years, and he got another kidney from the list, and so he had 4 kidneys in there. And I don't know, like where they stuff it, because like, I got plenty of room and I can still feel it. Like you can physically feel where they
really.
Put it. Yeah.
Do you think that's
it.
just a shadow thing, or like a mental thing that you're like, there's something there, or do you?
No, like my body shape has changed as well, like from the surgery.
Well, Katie was pretty, so have you gotten more attractive?
Yeah, and listen, I have the kidney of a 38-year-old now, so. But evidently, women's kidneys are a little smaller, and so it's a little easier to put it in there. But I talked to the doctors about my creatinine levels and things like that.
So why do they not? I guess I haven't really ever thought through this, but it would seem to me that if your body accepts it, I don't understand why it would give out after a certain amount of time.
Just the process. I can't explain it to you. I'm sure that it has to do with the rejection. Some people's bodies eventually just accept the organ. Mm-hmm. Some people's don't. Listen, they told me I'm very likely to get skin cancer because of the drugs I'm taking, the Cellcept.
Yeah, but you were a ginger anyway.
I was likely to get skin cancer anyway, but now I'm at a very high risk of it. And so, like one of the things they tell you is wear a hat, and I was like, I got that covered.
Yeah.
But I wear long sleeve shirts all the time anyway because I don't like to wear sunscreen. And when I go to the river, it's like every time you jump in, you don't want to film around you. You start to wonder, like, am I changing the gender of the frogs in this area, And so instead I wear these long sleeve shirts, and I've been doing that for a long time. And so hopefully I'll be able to go fishing and swimming, maybe I'll just go closer to dark. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't go to the beach anyway, so it's not
so
like
you're going to say, so what you're saying is you're going to go fishing in the dark.
Yeah, absolutely. But I can't go swimming this year.
Reference, Google it.
No rafting. I can't go swimming in the river because I've just had surgery, so I've got this foot-long scar that I got to tend to.
Well, you just got to put us on the river and then wave at us when we go down.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Brian's going to be at the house here in a couple of weeks, and
well, if Katie were sitting here, what would you say to Katie?
I don't know. I mean, what do you say? Thank you, of course, always. I don't know. You wonder if you knew that you were going to die, what would, like that's the thought that goes through my mind. Like if she knew she was going to die anyway, what would her thoughts be leading up to that? Would she have looked herself for people who she could have helped live longer? Would I have been one of those people she chose? I don't know. I'd hope so. I'd hope that she would feel good about it. I mean, the truth is she doesn't know, and she wasn't aware when she passed. I hope that she didn't suffer long. I hope that none of us has to suffer. But I think that it's difficult as somebody that receives an organ to think that, hey, I deserve this, and I can't imagine how someone's parent would respond. It's like I'm never going to be as good as Katie, for her family, and I don't want to be, right? Like that's her family, that's her connection. At the same time, I hope that I can give them something to hang on to, something to be hopeful about, a good story to tell her children, and just something positive that came out of the experience, because the fact is that we're all going to pass, we're all going to die at some point. What's going to happen as a result of your death? Are you going to save 4 people?
I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to rejoice when Jerry dies.
Yeah, well, but all seriousness, like, what's going to be the result? Like, how do you value your own existence?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not an organ donor right now, but after this,
why not?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess part of it is because I always thought, death is a scary thing. And I think part of it is I'm like, am I really dead? Because you hear horror stories about, they wake up in the morgue and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want them hacking on me if I'm not fully gone.
I think you watch too many mummy movies.
You're probably right.
No, it is true though. Well, obviously not in today's day and age.
No,
you
but
know,
that's why they
what
put
the
bells. That's why they
Saved
had
by the
wakes.
Bell, and then the graveyard shift and all that stuff.
And that's what wakes were, right?
Yeah,
We
you're waiting
we're
for them to
gonna-
wake up.
We're gonna keep them around for about a
Yeah,
week.
you're gonna check, make
if
sure.
they don't start stinking, then they're still
They're
kicking.
good to go.
You know?
So, but I mean, at this point, I do agree that if when I'm dead, like the idea that it would do some good for people,
Right.
I think it weighs on me.
Right.
Know?
Well,
Especially knowing that it would help people I know.
Right.
Like if I were dying, I would definitely give you a kidney.
Absolutely.
Even Brian maybe.
Yeah, why not?
So,
Yeah, and
I think it's more my liver that I'm going to need.
you and me both.
well, we know a few people that had to get those, didn't we? But no, I
Shockingly, we've got a good friend that same thing. He had a liver transplant.
Yeah.
And he takes the drugs every day. And
they're harsh. They're harsh. I'll tell you. You get little side effects you didn't think of, like swelling of the feet. And,
oh my God!
When do you go back?
When he
do you go
came
back?
in the other day, he was I don't know if you noticed, but he was laying on your couch with
Yeah.
his feet propped up.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I'm like a pregnant lady. I got to put my feet up.
yeah,
It
I had
keeps
a
swelling."
reverse C-section. They cut me open and put something in rather than
He's got
took
some
something
extra.
in. But anyway, I have to watch my salt intake now. You have to have diet restrictions, so I have to drink a lot of water, and I have to watch my exposure to the heat and stuff like that. But I talked to the surgeons. They're like, "What do you expect, dude? Like, we put a lot of water in your body just to make sure everything was working. And when you have surgery, just weird things happen. So you're gonna have some water."
Have you seen your family yet?
Yeah, Jamie came in. I hadn't seen the kids except for just video calls
Yeah.
and stuff. But Jamie came with the dog, so that's the important.
The
part,
dog
right?
is very important.
Yeah.
What kind of dog you got?
We have a Yorkie.
Oh no!
Yeah,
The Yorkie people.
we
I
definitely.
didn't. I
are. We
really
love our
thought up till
Yorkie.
now that he wasn't a communist.
We had border collies, but when you get kids, you need a less demanding dog. And
Yeah.
I think I don't even know if our dog's alive sometimes. Like, this dog sleeps like 16, 18 hours a day. But then she walks across the room, gets tired, because it's a long way for a small Yorkie. And it's like, I don't know, I'm done with that.
Brian
business.
has a dog we call Killer. That's my favorite because it's a small dog. It's all furry looking. It looks so sweet.
He's a freak of nature that
And
shouldn't
then
exist.
this dog kills everything. Like it's killed goats and
happens.
chickens and I was like, oh, that's my spirit animal. This little hairy dog.
We had a cat that was a killer, and bring like half a
Speaking,
rabbit home
it
once
was
a week.
speaking of Yorkies, he's a cross between a Yorkie and an Australian Shepherd.
Oh, there you go.
And the
So he's
puppies
British
were
and
so
Australian
big.
at the same time. He's like
The
a
puppies were
criminal.
so big that they had to do a C-section on the dog. So technically, he should
Oh,
not
wow.
exist.
Anyway, he's got a weird collection of
like a
animals.
liger.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a
We have
lion, tiger.
also a mutual very good friend who loves Killer as well.
Yes, that actually mouth kissed Killer, and he's a lawyer. We'll leave it at that. He's a
Well,
lawyer.
Each their own. But no, we the kids have not come. They're busy. They got plays.
Yeah,
and they had
yeah.
to finish school and stuff. So, and
They ain't got no time for you.
one of the big dangers once you get a transplant is chicken pox.
Chicken pox. Did
Yeah.
you not have that
Have
as
you
a
already
kid?
had chickenpox?
I've had chicken pox several times because I have a weird immunity. But
Several times. I thought
Once-
you could only get it like once.
You
No,
can
I
get
got
it.
it.
You can get it not bad, and then you can get it. If you get it bad enough, apparently you don't get it again.
Well, that's what shingles is, isn't it?
Yeah.
in
it's all
adults.
herpes, isn't it?
it's all the same disease, but it manifests itself different ways. But when you erase your immune system so that you can accept an organ, like your
That's
body
true.
still remembers that it had this virus at one point in the past, and that thing
Right.
could come at any point. And so if I get
That's
exposed to any kids that have chickenpox, I'm gonna get chickenpox
Yeah,
again.
stay away from them kids, man.
So I'm trying to generally stay away from kids. I've got to fly home on the 30th, so I'll be wearing my
You can always
N95.
ride with us.
Yeah, no, it's-
Family truckster.
it does. It's kind of painful to ride in cars still. You jiggle, and so like my organs, they're all in different places now, so they feel a little different. It kind of hurts, but so I'm not looking for a 2,000-mile road trip at any point in the very near future. But I'll fly home. I think I've actually got to fly to Bozeman, which is an hour and a half away from the house. But if you can fly into Montana, generally speaking, you can get there within.
Yeah, Montana's got a real low population in comparison to most.
1 million people in the entire state, and that place is
It's huge.
huge.
Most of the population lives in the west.
Is it? I've never been to Montana. Is it all cowboys and?
Nah, I mean it's just like here, just like anywhere else.
The
Except
one thing that threw me off was when we were driving we flew into Bozeman, drove up to Helena, and while we were driving up, Laura and I were noticing that the hay bales are like 4 times as big as like a square bale down here. It's like 4 times the size of a regular square bale.
yeah.
And they get nothing but cows and cows and cows and cows.
Well, there's 3 times as many cows as there are people, so there's like 4 million cows.
Well, how's the prices up there? Not to change the subject.
Just same as here.
We're going to say we're seeing inflation here on it.
Yeah, I mean, so many people wanted to move in the housing market. You know, there's just not a lot of extra housing in Montana. If you don't live in town, then you're in danger of dying from nature.
Yeah, that's the thing that he was talking about is that out there, everybody, tries to help everybody.
Yeah, even if you don't like your
come across
neighbors.
somebody that needs help, you better help them because the next time it might be you.
Yeah, you don't pass somebody by if they're in the ditch. I have good friends that live all over the state, but in southeastern Montana on the Northern Cheyenne and Crow reservations, I've got some good friends there. One of my political candidates, Jason Small, he's a state senator, lives at Northern Cheyenne, and so we're Facebook friends, and a lot of the Crow are Facebook friends with me. All Native Americans that I know are on Facebook, and I think because the technology was designed for tribes, like friend groups, it's just like the most effective communication platform in the world for Native American tribes because everybody's like everybody's cousin. And so anyway, so you see everything from the community on Facebook, and when people's kids go missing, which is, I mean, it's just very, very common that their daughters go missing there.
Really?
Yeah, we have this missing and murdered indigenous people problem. Like, it's got its own name. It's such a substantial issue.
That's the thing that I was shocked about.
What is the basis of that, though?
The FBI is their law enforcement. They just don't, like, everything's a suicide. Oh, yeah, you got shot in the back of the head at 30 yards. Obvious suicide. Like, Native Americans, you want to see the power of socialism at its extreme. Like, there it is. The government takes care of everything there. They don't do it well. And also, we're talking about the people that kicked the crap out of Custer. And so, the government's still angry at those people in some way. But in Canada and in the U.S. both.
So they have their kids go get missing like that regularly?
Man,
A lot.
regularly.
I mean, up there, the weird thing is they always have, like, billboards and all kinds of stuff about how, well, I mean, think about it. They're trafficked. They're the population that
They're so often murdered.
and
by people they
kidnapped.
know. It's alcohol's so insidious, guys. I just I can't drink, but when I could drink, I did. And I frequently drink to excess, but I was never a violent drinker. Some people are, and some people when they drink alcohol do things that they might not otherwise do. And
Yeah, you got to watch those Huffmans on. Never mind, just joking. It's a joke, Brian. It's a joke. Don't get all offended.
I'm not offended.
But everybody here has witnessed somebody that was one of those. Oh, don't give that guy Maker's Mark. Don't give that guy Southern Comfort. We all know somebody like that, right?
But get people, hey, don't give that guy weed.
Right. You never hear that, right? Well, he'll pass out.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to eat all your Doritos.
I told Brian the other day. This is very inappropriate, but I'll say it on here.
Why not?
I said that the adult male that I'm probably closest to my whole life is Brian Huffman. And since
Oh, Lord.
the level of closeness, like to me, the pinnacle of closeness would be, we have the whole gay sex thing going. Since that ain't going to happen.
I thought you were going to say something simple. Like
No,
we
no.
peed together
No,
outside
no.
or something.
I'm saying since that's clearly not
Cross
happened.
streams.
I
So inappropriate.
I said the
I don't even
only
know where
way,
we're
to
going
me,
with
the
this.
only pinnacle that I could get to with Brian is to mutually do, like marijuana or something, because I haven't done that together, and it would be that would be like our pinnacle, right, Brian?
Yes, absolutely.
You could maybe do a sweat lodge ceremony or something.
Now, we should probably do that one of these days.
Yeah.
Y'all
See,
used
see,
to
look,
do
man,
this.
like
Yeah, we
So
used to
I'm
do
not-
that.
I used to do the sweat
Jeremy
lodge
may have
back in
come
the
to
day.
one of those.
no, I hadn't
remember.
been any of
Oh,
that.
no.
So look,
I would
I'm
be
not,
totally down for a
I'm
sweat
not
lodge.
opposed to all this stuff. It's just it's not my thing. Because if you remember, Pepper, you knew me back in high school.
Yeah.
In
No,
high
you were-
school,
you
man,
were
It
kind of
should
square.
be your
I
thing
was
because you were in the
I was
martial
very
arts.
square. No, but I didn't want. We didn't have the data we have now. I didn't want anything that would infringe my ability to progress.
Your
as a martial
hero
artist.
is Joe Rogan. That's what he does. He does mushrooms and eats
I know. At this point,
elk liver.
At this point,
raw.
though, I ate some liver the other night. Matter of fact,
Raw?
No, I didn't eat it raw. I couldn't do that.
Flash
It was very
fried?
grainy. Yeah. But I just don't know that I need it. You know.
We should tell
So-
Reggie to do flash fried liver at the cellar.
Man, it wasn't very good, to be honest. Like I tried to pretend like it was a steak, but it's gritty,
No, it's just
and
liver.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, liver
So-
eating Johnson over there.
I look on the weed thing. Like it's a circle back because we want to finish things up, and I want to
Did
waste
you
all
say
Pepper's
circle back?
time. Yeah, I did say circle back.
Oh Lord.
So on the weed thing, like I'm not opposed to it. I think I've seen the studies. I think it's very beneficial. I think it causes.
What about the NISA study that talks about decreasing the effects of alcohol?
Yes, no, there is a study that shows that I've used this in DUI defenses. That if I shouldn't say this because people will do it, but
Don't do this.
There is
However,
a study that shows that if you are smoking marijuana while drinking alcohol, it lowers the negative effects of the intoxication from alcohol. Because we all agree that this is way worse than cannabis.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So,
Yes.
But at the same time,
I don't think a reasonable person could argue otherwise.
I don't either. But that's why
Who do you know that's ever died from?
I struggle
smoking
with the
marijuana?
people that
Nobody,
are.
zero.
it's like that. What is it? Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
Do we?
You can't OD on it.
Yes.
It's not habit.
You don't want
forming.
any of this, Huey. Get away. He's like, well, what is it? Am I going to get addicted? You're not going to get addicted.
It's not habit forming. You can't OD on it.
You know, and I'm sure we all know people that, you know, they watch Judge Judy every day and they have to watch Judge Judy. So anything can be habit forming, right? Anybody can go overboard with anything. You can go overboard with eating or sex or, you know, like reading billboards on the interstate. I gotta read it. You know, you're gonna have a wreck and die. I don't know.
The damn kicking lawyer, Bill.
I gotta read that Kickin lawyer billboard. I need to see the law hog.
Yeah. That's a new one.
But no, so I'm not going to say that marijuana can't be habit forming. I think it can be, and I think that people that have a history of schizophrenia in their family should be careful. I think anybody under 25 should be very careful.
If you want to know about the medicinal uses of marijuana, you should talk to my wife. She's read all the studies. She knows how it works.
Yeah, she's a doctor.
And she's right about that, too, because, you know, she's like, well, all right, if you have any history of schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder,
right. Don't do it.
You got to be careful.
Hey, Ron is watching, just FYI.
And people,
Ron.
Yeah, Ron.
people
said-
need to be informed, you know, when they do things.
Hello, Ron.
People need to make good decisions. And listen, I'm totally against kids using
In the
drugs.
past come back to haunt you, Lopan.
You know, and that's a big thing we did. We made it 21 and over in Montana. I think that the studies are going to show.
Well, Laura says that, you know, she's not a proponent of anybody under the age of 21 or really realistically 25.
Right. No,
because
you
your
wanna
brain
talk
is not
about
fully
it.
formed
Yeah.
at that point in time.
Well,
After
here's my
different
problem
story.
with all that is if you can enlist in the military and go overseas and shoot our enemies.
Like 10 people had the same argument in Montana, but I'm going to tell you from the voting.
No, I don't disagree, but my point is it needs to be one way or the other.
Yeah.
If we're
Well,
going to
it's not
send them
gonna be.
over there at 18 to kill folks,
Well,
you
now-
should be able to smoke, drink, whatever.
As you can tell from our media,
If
we
you
don't
can
think
vote-
much of
if you
killing
can-
people in this country, right? Like, if you go to Europe, you're going to see nudity on television.
Oh, yeah. Well, Germany's drinking age is 13.
Yeah, and their drinking age is different. So, you know, like, they've got different values about what
But now they're
constitutes-
talking about, you know, you can enlist in the military at 18 and fire an M4, but we want to take away the AR-15 until you're 21.
in the
here.
private. Yeah. Yeah. No,
I mean, really?
listen, I think we're going to
Really?
move towards 25, guys. I think we probably will. But what's that going to do? I mean, the black market's going to exist for those people. They're going to go to somebody they know that's 25, purchase it for them. So I think 21 is probably reasonable. It's with alcohol.
How are folks in Montana on the Second Amendment issues?
I mean, it's Montana. So
Come on, man.
I
It's
would
Montana.
guess. I would guess I know.
I'd say the
You would
average
probably know
person-
from that TV show called Yellowstone.
Yeah, I don't watch that.
I don't either.
We live in Montana.
I watched it. It's pretty
like
good.
It's like when you work at the hospital and you watch ER. It's like
Yeah.
that'll never happen. Nope.
Law
no,
shows.
That's
That's
not,
not how
even
this
legal
works.
here. You can't.
That's
do
not how
that.
any of this works.
Nah,
any
you-
movie, you're like, yeah, that's a felony. Oh, that's
Yeah.
felony.
I
Yeah.
tell you,
that's
the
funny,
show
too.
y'all need to watch if you haven't is The Boys on Amazon Prime.
I've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
told
I've
to
seen
watch
that.
that.
I've
Okay,
seen
you
that.
need to
Oh,
watch
it's
it.
the
The new
first-
I've been told
season
to
is
watch
out.
that.
The new season is out, and that's not for children, but it's definitely a very good
It's a super. It's
Have
an
you watched it?
anti-superhero.
Have you watched it, Josh?
television
I
show.
watched a couple of the episodes from the first season, but I'm not caught up.
I think it's pretty accurate as to how it would go if people actually had superpowers.
Oh, I agree. Yeah,
Sure.
I like their Superman iteration.
You're talking about like
Yeah, it's like their
the
Superman.
corporations
Yeah, well, they have
taking over and like sponsorships.
Yeah, but they
and-
have real human problems.
Oh yeah.
Like they're addicts and they have sexual.
Well, I mean,
issues
think about it. If you
and-
can do whatever the hell you want, what's to
Mm-hmm.
stop you? Really?
Right. Well, ask Charlie Sheen. AIDS.
That ain't have tiger
AIDS
blood.
is to stop you. Yeah.
That ain't have tiger blood.
But anyway,
Hashtag winning.
that Charlie had his own problems, I think, with addiction too. And maybe if marijuana had been legal, he wouldn't have become an opioid addict or a heroin addict or. And
Opioids
that's
are
the stuff
are-
that they're insidious too. Alcohol and opioids are just really bad. And so if you're going to have somebody doing something, if you can choose on the spectrum, if you can say, okay, I want society to have this as their ill, what do you choose?
Well, you can't make money, with marijuana. The pharmaceutical companies, I mean, you can make money,
Sure.
but nowhere near the amount of money you can make in like Xanax prescriptions.
Sure. Sure.
And
Big Steve.
and they will always, it's probably him.
It is.
They can always tweak the formula and then get another patent for another 20 years,
Sure.
and that's the brand name. It's just ridiculous the
Well,
way they do that.
And again, it usually comes into your state, medical marijuana first. And
Oh, yeah.
That's because
Tennessee's going to be one of the last states, and they're missing a huge opportunity.
yeah, Mississippi, Arkansas, Kentucky,
Well,
North
I
Carolina.
was on drug free Tipton for
Missouri.
a while, and that
Mississippi, for
coalition,
God's
a lot
sake.
of them view weed as they still view weed as a gateway. They view that if they do weed.
They can keep viewing it that way all they want.
I know.
but
I'm
it's
just
not
saying
true.
that's. I don't agree with
You're
it.
saying they think
not
if you
true.
inject weeds, then you're
You're
Well,
gonna-
if you have 2 marijuanas, you're pushing it. But if you have 3 marijuanas, oh my God,
you're gonna
okay.
die. No, that's what
gonna
I think Jerry Wayne was in the same program that I was in high school.
Dare.
the Dare stuff.
Dare.
Or in grammar school, and so
We
that's what
had,
they told us. It
yeah.
was very unrealistic. It was
Just say no.
nowhere near reality. And if you lie to people like that, what do you expect their response is going to be? They're not going to trust anything you say. We should have been reasonable and say this just isn't for kids. This isn't for you. And like people say, oh, you're automatically going to be a bad example, and kids are going to do this. Listen, tell me the kids aren't doing it now. And the fact is that if you got licensed sellers then whose license is at risk, if they sell to someone under 18, then they're going to be careful. I mean, I know because I work in a dispensary. You check everybody's ID. And they showed studies out of most of these states that legalize adult use, they have reduced teen usage because they see their parents using it for their bursitis and their arthritis and their, anxiety from paying the bills.
It takes the coolness away.
Yeah,
from it.
that coolness factor just
it's
evaporates.
It's not the auntie
you know?
shaking her pill thing at the Strand.
Yeah.
on a Saturday night.
I mean, that's what it comes to is that it's not as exotic and something that would be taboo, and so kids aren't drawn to it as much. It's
well,
like
CBD is legal. How many kids are running out there doing CBD?
well, I know that Delta 8, and I think we talked about Delta 8 a little earlier this week, and Delta 8 is psychoactive. And so I think the USDA made a mistake, or the Department of Ag, when they put in the Farm Bill that it's not psychoactive or whatever.
Did they
the
make a mistake
was.
though? Did
Right.
they?
But I mean, if you probably need to put it in the same boat as marijuana. That you probably need to have lab results. Like you got to think, guys, when somebody goes about marijuana in Montana, it's been tested. It's been grown by somebody that's licensed. They pay 20% taxes on it, and so we've generated. In the end, at the end of the year, we're going to have generated somewhere in excess of $50 million in new tax revenue. That did not exist in the state.
And that's in a state with a small
Colorado did
population.
$1 billion, did they not?
Yeah, and 7,000 new jobs. I mean, these are good paying jobs, and very soon they're going to be carrying insurance as soon as the Safe Banking Act passes, because there'll be businesses just like every other business.
Yeah,
But-
that was one of the biggest drawbacks, is because marijuana, THC, is still classified as Schedule 1
Right,
federally.
so federally
it's
it's
Schedule 6 in Tennessee. That should tell you a hell of a lot. But Schedule 1 federally, and so banks can't touch it, credit card processors can't touch it.
Right.
Anybody, interstate transport,
Yeah, you have
can't
to
touch it.
do compliant banking, which it's more complicated, but it's doable. But it's mostly cash still. And my
Which is a
it's a detriment. It's not a good thing. And plus, the tax man cometh. He wants his money. You know, and if you've got stacks of cash sitting around waiting for him, that it becomes complicated. But we're moving to a mostly cashless system in Montana as we move forward. And our U.S. Senator.
How about that crypto there, Jerry?
Yeah, Jerry, you're gonna.
Actually, it's time to buy.
It is time to buy. You see, Ethereum was what, 1,000
Bitcoin yesterday was under $20,000.
It dropped down to like 18,000.
I think you gotta wait till it's like 16. That's the bottom.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see. I agree. I think it's going down
16's the
lower.
bottom.
I think 16.
We got about a 3-year bear market ahead of us. Yeah, we haven't seen the bottom yet.
3-year bear market?
I don't know about 3-year, but all the stuff. Now's the time to buy. Like, I haven't sold any stocks or crypto. I'm buying stuff.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's when you
If
buy.
you buy now, you're insane.
Why? It's at the bottom. I mean, or
Yeah,
it's
I don't
getting near
know.
the
It's-
bottom.
It's at the bottom.
I agree. I think there's
All right.
another 30%
Hey,
drop coming. That's what I think.
This thing is time stamped, right?
Yes.
So we can look at it in
My
3 years and go,
prediction
yeah,
is 30% drop by the end of the year. More drop.
more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Musk is buying doggy coin, but like to what end? Just so that he won't get lose a $285 billion lawsuit. I don't know.
Doggy coin.
I bought some Dogecoin.
I refuse to call it Dogecoin because originally.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
Originally,
with you. I'm
the
with you.
Apple engineers that
doggy
invented
coin.
it called it doggy coin.
It's doggy coin.
And so I refuse to call it Doge.
I
watched that happen. I told my business partner, I was like, every time Elon Musk sneezes on Reddit, something happens. And so I saw Tesla go through ludicrous value increases. And I said, watch this stupid cryptocurrency that they just came out with that he's tweeted about once. Watch it get 800% value increase overnight. And it happened. And I was like, eh. And he's like, dude, you need to start buying crypto. I was like, the hell you say? I go to the casino.
Have you lost your mind?
I don't know if you saw, but Miami has its own cryptocurrency because they're like the cryptocurrency city.
Yeah.
And they have a Miami coin that's almost worthless.
Well, there's this town in
all
Wyoming.
of the central banks are talking about doing a digital, fiat currency on crypto.
The U.S. government created
U.S. dollar, a crypto dollar.
Yeah.
Have you seen what happened in Canada? They turn that shit off. Boom.
Yes, sir, they do.
Good luck.
Yeah, the problem is you're not going to have part of the reason that these governments have maintained such
here it
power.
comes.
No, is because they control the currency.
Have you heard the term petrodollar? Have you heard that term?
Petrodollar.
Petrodollar. 1973 term.
Have you heard of the Bretton Woods Accords?
Oh, Josh is telling me we need to tie it up.
I
Hey,
bet he
you can
does.
tell us about it. Tell us about it, Brian.
No. Just Google the Bretton Woods Accords and the petrodollar.
All right, well, before we go back
And then you'll
into
figure out why we've had every war we've had since World War II.
1970
Sorry.
oil
No.
policy. We can move it.
We've had
Let's talk about organ
skirmishes.
donation again.
yeah. Go ahead. Sum us up.
No, I listen. If you're gonna be, what are you gonna do with it? You take
Be
it-
an organ donor.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You
Yeah.
know, I'm gonna be cremated when I pass. I know a lot of people are gonna be buried. What are you gonna do? You don't need your organs when you pass. You don't need any of it.
I'm not going to be cremated. I'm going to be thrown in a ditch with a cord of wood and a 5-gallon.
I thought it was a Viking funeral.
That's what I
thought he was gonna say.
Yeah, I was.
He's gonna have a pyre.
Aaron has instructed me to Viking funeral him
Yeah.
on the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
So.
Why would you burn up a perfectly good ship?
It's just a raft.
Just put
Like
me
a
in. Just
Tom
put me in
Hook.
the ditch.
Yeah.
Put a cord of wood on top of there. 5 gallons of diesel. Light it up. Call it a
The
party.
June bugs would get him.
Yeah.
I'm certain of it. Anyway,
I don't want to inhale, Brian.
Hey, I want to be crispy on the outside, pink in the
roll me up
middle.
and smoke me when I die is what Willie said.
Yeah.
But
Crispy on the outside.
you got to
pink in
tell
the
your
middle.
family it's not enough just to sign on the back of your driver's license and say I want to be an organ donor because
Put
your
in your
family's
will.
going to be there.
We're lawyers. We do will packages. Put it in your will.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in your living will. Put it in your healthcare
Directive.
proxy, healthcare directive. DNR, whatever they want to call it.
Yep.
Put it in everything you possibly can.
Because somebody could just say no, I don't like that, and it stops the whole process unless the
but
stuff is
if you
spelled
got it
out.
in 4 documents, including
you can save your ass that way.
check the box on the back of your license, do it.
Now, like me, like I said, I'm going to ride mine till the end, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, but hey, even a 90-year-old man might have some nice something,
Yeah.
maybe a skin graft.
Corneas.
Yeah, exactly.
Corneas.
Skin graft. Maybe I keep this beautiful head of hair until I pass, and somebody needs my
Nobody
hair.
wants a ginger head.
Maybe somebody wants some of my beard. But no, seriously, tell your family if you're going to be an organ donor.
Yeah.
And like Brian said, make sure it's in your documentation. If you've got it, put it on Facebook maybe. If you show your lawyer that's timestamped.
Become an advocate.
Yeah, and
I mean,
tell your family members. I mean, like, you want to talk about making a difference in the world. Like, going on TV is powerful, and people see you and all that stuff. But like, when you're sitting at home at 10 o'clock at night with your family, and you tell them, then, hey, I think it's important that I'm an organ donor, and if you pass, I'm going to donate your organs. I'm your parent, so don't start thinking it's not going to happen with you too. But no, have these conversations with your family and have them with your friends, and make sure that they know what your wishes are. And, maybe you can be somebody's salvation out there, as it were. Maybe you can keep somebody alive for a long time and give them some quality of life.
Years.
Yeah, years, add to their life. And like me, like Jerry was saying, my kids are 13 and 10, and so 8 more years puts me at 21. So that's graduating high school and going into college. And I mean, these are things that you don't think about until you.
And then the 7 years. So. 7 years is not even close. I mean, that's the
low.
Yeah.
That's just like the disclaimer they get.
Yeah.
Here, sign this.
Well, I mean, honestly, even an extra year. I mean, realistically, even if you got an extra year,
right.
If you knew you were going to go, that's a gift.
Yeah, and I was going to go on dialysis, and so it's not like I was on a banana peel waiting to go in the grave, But dialysis is nobody's friend.
Yeah. Now, my dad was on it while he was in the hospital recently.
My Huffman granddad was on dialysis for like years.
Yeah.
And it was not fun at all.
You have horrible psychological effects
terrible
from it too, like just nightmares and
but
stuff.
I do want to say this, and I'm sure she's probably listening. If she ain't listening now, she's going to watch it on a rebroadcast. Thank you, Donna Van Duser.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, thank you, Katie. Don't get me wrong. Katie, I think knows. Katie knows. At this point in time, she knows.
Yeah.
But the person who had to physically put their signature on the document, Donna Van Duser, thank you.
Yep, for sure.
Well, and I appreciate you guys, even Brian. Thanks, Pepper, for being on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody that watched, I appreciate you paying attention. And please share this, and maybe we can get some more people on as organ donors. If you haven't already, please like, follow, subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget we're on TikTok. Also, August 20th and 21st, the Covington Comic-Con is coming back to Covington. We are looking for vendors and sponsors.
Where's the venue?
Covington Civic Center.
Yes.
And then Michelle Allen is our longtime sponsor. She's a local realtor. She'll be glad to help you with anything you need property-wise. Mason's High Octane Martial Arts, located in Covington, Tennessee since 1993, making black belts and kicking lawyers. Yeah. Well, we moved it, but you've been to the original one. Yeah. Go to masonsmartialarts.com for that. Pepper didn't even get to tell you about
terrible.
He didn't even get to tell you about being kicked.
Yeah.
No.
Ground kick.
He has to tell that
and,
story before.
The cellar.
No. Before
I'm trying to do my lower thirds.
Well, hurry up to get lower thirds.
All right.
And then he's got to tell the story about getting kicked.
So Jerry just come back from China, North Korea, and he was telling me all these stories about these epic fights that he'd had, on the Great Wall of China
Monk
and stuff.
Whipped the shit out of you, didn't he?
He did.
And,
for $10.
And Jerry, he went to a draw with one of the guys that he had to fight, and so they were real impressed with him.
No. The Shaolin monk whipped the piss out of him.
I'm not talking about the Shaolin monk.
Yeah,
this is in
he's
competition.
Talking about,
one of the Korean Olympians, I believe.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
They had shown Jerry a kick. I think they were hanging out talking afterwards, or one of his masters was talking to him. And they said, look at this Olympic round kick, Olympic round kick. And so Jerry could tell you what that is specifically, but you just pull your hips differently.
Yeah.
And it's a round kick, and Jerry pulls it from Antarctica or somewhere. He pulls it from way back behind somewhere. And he was like, dude, this kick's awesome. And it's the ultimate kick. And I was like, I don't believe it. You got to kick me. I was like, because Jerry and I were in Taekwondo together. I turned Jerry on to ATA, actually.
Yeah.
And so we were in Taekwondo together. And so.
What was the Taekwondo that Aaron and I did?
Passeru.
Yeah, that was with Elvis's.
Kangaroo.
Yeah, Elvis's teacher. But Jerry, he had to do something more local. His parents retired, carting him back and forth to Memphis, I think. And so.
That gets all quick.
I turned him on to ATA. And then so we were always doing ATA stuff together. And I think I was testing for my purple belt at the time. And I was like, dude, come kick me with this round kick. It's like, I want to witness this ultimate kick that you've learned, And so I put 2 chest pads on and put my hands behind my head and, all right, let's do this, Jerry. And he kicked the shit out of me, man. I mean, he lifted me off the ground with one kick. He like lifted me 6 inches off the ground, and I had the 2 pads on already, but I remember I didn't know where I was. And I was in the air, and then I couldn't breathe, and so I hit the ground, and I was just struggling to breathe. He knocked the air out of me. And I told him the other day, I was like, yeah, I think you're the one that caused this kidney disease. You kicked the shit out of me.
Kicked him in needing an organ transplant.
Oh, it was rough.
Yeah. Well,
It was a harsh kick, but hopefully.
Well, I appreciate you still coming on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you don't kick me, we'll be fine.
No more kicks. And we will be on tomorrow. This was a special because we wanted to get Pepper on, but we do have a guest coming on tomorrow live at 5, so you guys can tune back in and hopefully have some interesting conversation on that. So again, I thank Pepper and Brian for joining me, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. So keep kicking.
All right, peace.
Thanks for watching, guys. Just remember that this is not legal advice or investment advice or business advice. This is for fun and entertainment purposes only.